In this video, we will start configuring security policies based on various methods. If you are new to firewalls and understanding the flow for how a policy works, we will keep it simple and filter traffic based on the network, subnet, or IP address, whether it is for the source or the destination. Now, before we can do that, let's go to our features page under config and then to features. Okay, and from there, make sure that the feature titled implicit firewall policies, which is shown right here, you need to make sure that it is enabled, and it is by default. If you want to configure a security policy to start filtering traffic, let's go to the policy page, which is here under policy and objects, and here under IPv4 for policy. There you will see two default policies. The first one will allow any device on the internal network to access the internet, and any other matches will be denied, which is the second entry that you see there. We will remove the first policy that is accepting everything to the internet. We want to be more restrictive of what our users and services can access. Okay, and now we're going to add a new security policy that will filter based on the network. And to do that, we will create new, which is right up here. Okay, and this is the format for how a policy should be constructed. So here's what we're going to do. So any host from the user and the server network on our LAN will be allowed to access the internet only. Other networks will not be able to access the internet. So to do that within this policy, the flow will start from the user and server networks, which exists on the LAN, which is connected off of the internal or the LAN interface. So we're going to select the LAN interface for incoming interface. Then communicating out to the internet, which is connected off of the WAN 1 interface, which is the outgoing interface that is here. So that is the actual flow of what we want to check that will use this particular policy. For the addressing, we will define the user and the server networks. To do that, we'll go to the source address, which is right here, and we're going to create a new object. Okay, so here for the name, we're going to create a new object that will define our user network. I'm going to follow a type of, standard for the naming. And then from here, we're going to define the type will be subnet. And these are some of the other options that we could choose, but we're going to choose subnet. And we're going to specify the user network, subnet, and the actual mask. And we're going to choose the LAN facing interface because that network is connected on our LAN. Once we're done with that object, we're going to go ahead and enter a comment here so we know what this is for. That's always very useful. Okay, and we will define or add an object for our server network. So we can add many objects that is needed. So this is our server network. The type will be subnet, and we're going to specify the subnet and the mask. And the interface will be our LAN interface. And let's enter a comment. And we'll say, okay. So now we have defined the actual source address. So the destination will be any network on the internet. So we're going to go ahead and select all. Now, usually you don't filter based on the destination address that's located on the internet because that will be a lot of different IPs, but you may have particular networks that you may want to filter. But in most cases, you're going to basically allow everything. And when we're talking or communicating to the internet for the user and the server network, we want to allow that for some of the following services. We're going to allow it for HTTP, for website type of access, and for HTTPS, secure websites, And you can also do a search by typing here at the bottom, and we want to allow DNS. Let's select that network service. And let's also allow ping services from our user and our server network. Okay, so the action can be accept or reject. So we want to make sure that in our particular case that we want to accept, because we want to allow this flow to occur through our firewall. And that is the default action. Next, we need to enable NAT, that it will use the WAN 1 interface address when communicating out to the internet. So it's important to enable this, really, really important. And of course, you will see that we're selected for use destination interface address, which would be the WAN 1 address that's configured on that interface. And we can also include comments indicating what this policy is doing. That's also very handy. So let's go ahead and enter a comment here at the bottom. So basically this is for outbound internet access. We also enable the logging options for all sessions, basically that we can monitor all the events that has happened for anything that has matched this particular policy. Okay, so when we are done with our changes, we will go ahead and apply our changes and add this new policy rule. So as a recap, based on what we just configured, we are allowing only our user and server network to access the internet for HTTP, HTTPS, DNS, and ping services on the internet. So when they communicate out to the internet, NAT will be enabled. So their IP address would translate to the IP that is configured on our WAN-facing interface. Now you also know that each policy that is added is associated with a policy ID, and this will come into play later, and that's pretty much indicated by the sequence numbers. So now let's go ahead, and what we want to do is that we're going to test this out to make sure that this policy does work. So to do that, we will go to our user computer that exists in the 172.17.101.0 network. And here, let's confirm if we can access a website which uses HTTP or the HTTPS service. We say something simple like cisco.com. And we can. So the policy does work. When we refresh our policy page, so let's go ahead and just go back to the page again, we should see some basic statistics or counts for that policy reflecting the number of bytes and packets that matched against this policy for enforcement. So this is a good and quick test to confirm if our policy is being used. So we are getting a good number of packets and traffic usage there as well. For more details, we can go to the policy monitor, which is here under monitor for policy and objects. Let's go to policy monitor. And here we can see all active sessions through our firewall and what policy ID was used. Well, the policy we created used a policy ID of 1. And there's currently 91 active sessions through our firewall that is using the policy that we just created. And at the bottom, we see further details about those 91 active sessions, such as the source and the destination interfaces that the sessions travel through, including the total bytes and packets so far. We can get even more details about these 91 sessions by clicking here on this particular bar. And there you will see that the source of these sessions has come from 2 hosts, both existing in the networks that we are allowing in our policy. One is our server, which has the most connections, and the other is our user computer, which has about 20 active sessions. Let's view the details of our user's computer's active sessions by clicking here in this bar. And this will show all of the active sessions for that computer, including the destination, byte size to the policy ID that was used. So this is definitely a great resource for viewing the details of an active session and what policy is actually being used. We can also view active session statistics by going to FortiView, which is here under System. and then to for the view, and let's go to all sessions. Okay, so this page will show a similar view that we saw before, but it will show it for all active sessions through the firewall. We can also look at sessions based on the source or the destination. Let's check out our sessions based on the source. And that's right here also under for the view. Okay, and this will show 2 active sources in terms of the number of sessions and bytes. So these monitors can provide good insight of the traffic through the actual firewall. So definitely take advantage of that to understand or for troubleshooting purposes. The next thing that we will do is set up groups that we can use with our security policies for creating a more simplified deployment. So here within our policy, you will see 2 things. One, for the source, we created 2 objects for the user network and the other for the server network, which is right here. And the second is for the services. We have added HTTP, HTTPS, DNS, and ping that is allowed for any destination network. What we can do in these 2 cases is create a group containing those objects and applying only the group itself. And that's what we're going to do, starting with creating a group for our address objects. So to do that, we will go to objects, which is here under object and policies, and we're going to go to addresses. Okay, and there you will see our 2 address objects that we created, which is right here in the top. One for our user network and the other for our server network. Let's add a new address group. So we'll do that by clicking here, and we're going to go to create new address group. Oops. Okay, let's create a group name. Something simple. Okay. And then we're going to select our user and server network objects. So this is our user network, and let's add the server network object to this group. And we're going to say OK to add this new group. Next, let's go to service objects, which is right below here for services. And here you will see the list of all default services configured based on its category, protocol, and port number. We will create a new service group. Okay, we will create a group name, something like internet ports. Okay, and we're going to select what services that we want to add to this group, which will be HTTP, HTTPS. We will add DNS, and we will add ping services. Okay, and then OK to add this new services group. Okay, so the newly created group will be listed here at the very bottom. So there you will see our group right here for internet ports with 4 members, which basically is the 4 services that we want to allow. Now let's go to the policy page to update our internet outbound policy to include our new groups. For the source address, let's delete one of these objects, and we're going to select our address group that contains our user and our server network. And let's delete the other object here. Next, we will delete some of the service objects. Okay, and then we're going to select the service group that contains the services that we want to be allowed. And that will be located here at the bottom, called internet ports. And let's delete this. Okay, when we are done, we'll click on OK to save our changes. And now our policy is a lot more simplified and more flexible, where we can just add new address objects or service objects to those groups when needed. Before we conclude, let's make sure that this works. Let's go back to our user computer and let's confirm if everything still works. And it does. So that is how you can configure filtering based on the network or subnet, including how to set up and to use groups on the FortiGate firewall.